BTX Window Automation has been manufacturing motorized window coverings since 1985. At its state-of-the-art factory in Dallas, Texas, each motor is carefully analyzed and tested to ensure that BTX motorization systems operate at peak performance. Several components make up not just the systems, but even the motors themselves. Everything including the drive shaft, braking components, solar accumulator, circuitry, and limit assemblies must be tested for the highest quality. With multiple testing stations, BTX can disassemble, test, and rebuild hundreds of motors in record time. Once each component is tested, the motor is reassembled and ready for our full-service production team to use in fabricating complete motorized systems.
This is the basic BTX solar system. Includes the solar motor, the connecting cable, the solar panel, the solar meter, and the solar charger. The BTX solar motor has 4 external leads: the antenna, the LED current indicator, the low voltage connection jack, and the solar power connector. This is the antenna. This helps for the reception from the onboard built-in radio receiver that every solar motor has from BTX. This is the LED current indicator. This helps to troubleshoot the motor so you know whether or not current is flowing to the motor's accumulator. All you have to do is press the button, and if the light comes on, then you know that current is flowing to the motor. This is the low voltage connection jack. This allows you to hardwire a low voltage switch to the motor for its operation. This is the solar power connector. This is where you use your connecting cable to plug in your solar panel, or this is where you also can plug in your solar charger. This is the basic solar motor setup. You have your solar motor, the connecting cable, and the solar panel. Simply take the connecting cable and plug it into the solar power connector until it clicks, and then with the other end, plug it into the bottom of the solar panel, and make sure you direct the solar panel into direct sunlight. In tough installations, or when there is low charge because of inclement weather, or maybe even because of the season, the solar charger can add to the accumulator the amount of charge needed to operate the shade. Simply plug in the solar charger into the solar power connector just like you would the basic connector from the solar panel. BTX also has a solar meter device which allows you to test the window to see if it is a good applicant for usage with the solar motor. Simply plug in the solar meter into your solar panel, and then on a good day of sun, angle your solar panel up so it catches the rays of the sun and read the meter. If you're reading 50 or greater, then you know this window is a good candidate. Now that we've gone through the different components that make up the solar system, we need to take a quick look at what the requirements are with regard to energy consumption. As a shade is operated, a certain amount of energy is depleted from the accumulator. This energy combined with a daily standby energy drain determines the total energy usage needed per day. For example, if a shade is run 1 full cycle per day, an approximate total of 350,000 milliamp seconds is used. In order to replenish this energy, the motor will need to collect at least the rate of 50 milliamp seconds for at least 2 hours. For applications where the collection rate is less than 50 milliamp seconds, longer periods of solar exposure are required to fulfill the necessary energy replenishment. As the shade is operated more often, the total energy consumption increases, in turn increasing the amount of energy required to replenish the accumulator. Now that we understand the basic components of the BTX solar system, let's look to set the limits from beginning to end. First, we need to pair the system. We need to first put the motor in discovery mode. So plug it in, listen for the click. Now with the transmitter or wall switch, press the shear button because that's the channel we're using. Press the open and close at the same time, and that will pair this transmitter to this specific motor. The motor should jog once it's completed. Now, as a safety precaution, just in case any other BTX radio device is listening, we need to unpair this motor from anything else out there. First, unplug this current motor because we do not want to unpair this motor. Then with your transmitter, select shear and hit stop and open at the same time. It's going to blink between 5 and probably 8 times. Once it stops blinking, you know everything else around has been unpaired and is no longer listening. Now we're ready to adjust the limits. First, plug this motor back in, select the shear button, and hit open to try to adjust the open limit. See where it stops. This will indicate what we need to do, whether we need to add to the limit or take away from the limit. If the motor stops early, then we need to add to the limit, which is the plus limit. So what you're going to do is you're going to insert the tool into the hex head, and you're going to turn it in the plus direction, which should be clockwise. Turn it a few turns, and at the same time hit the open button on your transmitter. That should bump the shade up. It should actually start going up as you turn the device. Once you've got it to where you think you want it going into the open or up direction, run the shade down a little bit, then run it back up and see if it stops where you want it. If it stops where you want it, great. Do not do any more adjustments, and we can go directly to setting the close or down limit. If it went up too much and you need to actually bump it down, what we need to do is now run it into the down position a little bit, stop it, insert your tool again, turn it into the minus direction a few times, run it open and close again, and see if it stops where you want it. You may have to repeat this step several times. If you're happy with where your open limit is, now we can move down to the down limit or the close limit. Now with your tool, insert it into the opposite hex head. That'll be the one you're adjusting now. Run the shade into the down position and see if it stops where you want it. If it runs too far, be prepared to stop it so you don't ruin the fabric. If it stops short, then we'll just bump the limits a little bit. If the limit stops short of where it needs to be, we need to add to the limit. We need to add more length to the actual down limit. So what you're going to do is you're going to insert that tool back in that hex head. You're going to turn it into the plus direction, which should be clockwise. Turn it a few turns, and as you turn it, hit the close button on your transmitter. That should bump the shade down as you turn it. Stop it where you want it, then run the shade open a little bit and then back closed to see if it is where you want it to be. In the instance that you ran the shade down too far with its limits and you need to actually adjust it up some, what you need to do is run the shade into the open position, probably about a foot or so. Stop it, and then with your tool, insert it back into the close hex head. Turn it into the minus position, probably try doing it 3 or 4 turns as far as the revolutions go, and see how much time that gives you. Pull it out, run it up a little bit more, and then run it back down and see where it stops. That should have adjusted your limit somewhat, and if you need to adjust it more, repeat it. If you went up too much, then all you have to do is turn it in the plus direction, which is clockwise, and hit the close limit a few times, and that should put it right where you need it. Run it open and close a couple times, and then everything should be set and you should be ready to go.